He's the director of the coordinator, state of Michigan, for Campaign for Liberty. As far as I know, we have a lot of libertarian notions in our caucus. I am very friendly to the libertarian notion. There are some things that, obviously, that I might disagree with, but they won't be here tonight. Because Tony gives his heart to what he does, and I'm going to tell you something. I'm glad they're doing it. They're holding people's feet to the fire, and if ever we think that we do not have something in common for the several groups that are holding the government to the Constitution, then we have failed, and we will lose. So I'm glad to have Tony come back and present this thing on Common Core. And as he comes, come on, Tony, give Tony a big hand for coming and presenting to us tonight.
Okay, so I'm going to, I'm basically just going to kind of give you a legislative / strategy update. I am not the expert on Common Core, which is why I invited Tammy. And by the way, you can call her Tammy. So not Tamara.
All right.
Tammy, apparently. Anyways. Right now, the Michigan Department of Education is doing public hearings, and they've been doing them around the state. They've got a couple more coming up. There's one coming up here in Ipsy on Monday. The Michigan Department of Education will then present their recommendation to the State Board of Education, who will then vote on whether to accept the, I just flat out call them Common Core standards. I'm told that it's more aptly the Common Core aligned standards. The State Board of Education will vote on these, and what we're talking about here, what we have now, are probably the most pernicious of the standards, the science and social studies standards. So that's just kind of the lay of the land of what's going on. Now, there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes by various groups and people to work on getting a Common Core repeal bill going, and we hope that that'll happen fairly soon. I'll certainly let you know when that does, and then there'll certainly be more actions that need to be taken in order to get that passed. But right now, what we're doing is we're kind of fighting the State Board of Education. And there was a meeting last Wednesday in Lansing, and this was my first one. Tammy has been to many of these. It was a meeting where the Michigan Department of Education tells you how awesome Common Core is, or how awesome these standards are. They don't call them Common Core, although they are Common Core. And so it's basically just a cheering session. Let people that oppose Common Core spend their time going there and talking to them about it, instead of spending time finding like-minded individuals and getting them organized to apply pressure to the State Board of Education. And so I went there. I thought, you know what? I typically don't advocate attending meetings or hearings as a method of trying to fight a particular bill or these standards. I typically don't recommend that, but I thought this might be an opportunity to kind of rally people, get people excited about it, knowing that we are about to get into a much bigger Common Core fight. Leading into that to kind of bring this issue back to people's attentions. And I went there, and Tammy was quite prepared. Tammy had, there were 4 pages, I think, of questions, 4 or more pages of questions for everybody to ask, for those people that, 5 pages of questions for everyone to ask, for those people that didn't quite know what to ask or this or that. So that we could get a lot of people drilling them with questions, and it just didn't turn out that way. It just didn't turn out that way. The way these things are set up, There's really not a lot of time for people to make comments and stuff like that, and they were telling people to put them on sticky notes, and then they would take them up and they put these sticky notes on the wall, and then they'd pick a few of them that they like to ask. And so we told everybody to say no, refuse the sticky notes. And so this was one of the really good things that came out of this was I watched the folks that came with us. They all refused the sticky notes, and they just raised their hands and they got a question. I want to ask my question, and we basically forced them throughout the whole presentation to ask the questions. But really the only questions that were, at least the only good questions that were being asked were by those folks that were extremely knowledgeable about Common Core. And if you have looked at Common Core at all, more than just the reports of what you hear about Common Core in the classroom, but you look at the mechanisms of Common Core, how it was created, where it's coming from, and how it's being implemented. There's no way to not seriously have your eyeballs roll back into your head, because it is so complicated and interwoven in different mechanisms, from the feds to the states to the locals, and it's an extremely complicated issue. And so the only people that really felt comfortable even asking questions and saying anything for the most part were the people that really knew this stuff inside and out. And so that brought me to this Common Core hearing on Monday that's going to happen in Ypsilanti in eastern Michigan. And my original plan was, okay, I was going to organize here in Washtenaw to get a bunch of people out there and get them to protest Common Core and this, that. I figured I could get it. There's a whole lot of rabble-rousers in Washtenaw County, so I didn't figure it'd be too hard to get a bunch of people out there. But I had to reevaluate that. And in my personal opinion, I don't believe that provides a valid pressure point. I believe that when the night was over, the only people that were in that room, for the most part, were the people that were wholly for these standards and the people that were wholly against these standards. And were there maybe a few that were kind of floating in the middle where we could have influenced? Yeah, but the work necessary to get to those few seemed overwhelming. So my recommendation as a strategy is to redirect the attention to the people that are elected. And in this case, the people that are elected is the State Board of Education. Now, these folks particularly are vulnerable. Unfortunately, I don't know what the makeup is, what the exact count is, Democrat to Republican. 6-2, right. So, right. Yeah, we can debate their base philosophy, but the point is that as even Republicans in name only, they have to be nominated by a convention, which means the precinct delegates have the power, which means that we can exert a lot of pressure over them. Will we be able to make enough fuss to maybe drag one of the or two of the others away? Maybe not, but that is the appropriate pressure point, and it's the appropriate next step to actually going for a Common Core repeal bill, because after being nominated, of course, these folks are elected statewide. So it's not just a small skirmish like these meetings would be, where you can get some local people there. This is a fight that we can wage statewide. So for me, that's the direction I'm going. I have now started telling everybody to contact the State Board of Education, and Tammy has sheets with the contact information on it. Tammy is incredibly prepared all the time, very impressive, and she has contact sheets for you. And what you want to do is Monday, you want to call all of them and just simply tell them. You don't have to give them a long dissertation. There's no reason for you to explain your rationale. Just simply tell them that you want a no vote on the science and social studies standards. You want them to vote no on the current proposed science and social studies standards. Now, they may try to keep you on the phone and talk you out of that, or drag your explanations out of you. That's up to you if you want. For me, I got one message. I want a no vote. That's it. So, with that out of the way, I think I'll introduce Tammy. Tammy is from Michigan Stop Common Core, and she has been working with Campaign for Liberty on this, and been very helpful with getting kind of me up to speed on the ins and outs of Common Core. And I've been hopefully helpful with them working out strategy and things like that. So, Tammy, thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks so much. Oh, it's such an honor to be here with a new group of people. I'm so politically active. I feel like I know everybody in the state, but clearly not outside of my local area. I've been to many tea parties, but not this one. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I spend most of my time on education matters. The things going on in education right now are so complex. I call it a big monster with lots of tentacles. It's impossible to know everything going on. I learn something new every day, and I do this pretty much every waking hour, sadly. I prepared some sheets here. I don't know how much each of you, how many people here know what Common Core is? Like when I say the word, you know what it is? Okay, who feels like they really despise it? Okay, who loves it? Okay, so I'm okay. I just wanted to get a feel for my crowd. So I've made some hot sheets for you to try to help you understand kind of the hot points on the different issues. So this cover sheet is issues that Stop Common Core in Michigan that's working on. I'm the vice president of the board of Stop Common Core. Not that that means anything, but it's kind of what I do. So the first issue is repeal Common Core in Michigan. So behind it, there's a sheet about Common Core. The next one is respect parental rights to opt out of objectionable materials and tests and that type of thing. Behind that, there's a sheet about that. What's wrong with these issues, right? Next, stop excessive testing and data collection, data mining on our kids. There's a whole sheet about that. The next one, Stop Common Core aligned science and social studies standards. That's what Tony was just talking about, and I'll talk a little more about that with you because it's really hot right now. They're about to vote on it. And the last one is Stop P20 Human Capital Workforce Development. A lot of people don't understand what that is. Common Core is a piece of P20. Basically, it's tracking kids to fill positions in the workforce, open positions in corporations. So instead of a free America, we're slotting kids into jobs based on the needs of businesses by the end of 6th grade. So very complex issues, all of these. I have a sheet on that here for you. If you would like these sheets, instead of printing out a bunch and giving them to you and maybe you don't want them, I printed a bunch of the Science and Social Studies Standards hot sheets for those interested. And then Under that, there's petitions that you can sign. And if you put your email on there, I'll be happy to send you the whole set. So I'll pass these around while I'm talking. And then you already have the Board of Education members, and if you could please call them and say, please vote no on the Science and Social Studies standards, that would definitely be very helpful. And if you could do that within the next week, that would be wonderful. So I'm going to go over the Science and Social Studies standard sheet real briefly, and then I'm just going to open it up for questions about anything, Common Core or Science and Social Studies standards, anything I've talked about. So the Science and Social Studies standards are unproven, just like the Common Core was, and our children will be guinea pigs in this, just like they were with Common Core, or are. The national origins of the Science and Social Studies standards are illegal and unconstitutional, as I'm sure many of you know. With the national outcry against Common Core, why would we want to adopt these new Science and Social Studies standards? They don't care, they just keep pushing through with their agenda. Like I said, it's an agenda, it's part of an agenda, it's the P20 agenda, and Snyder talks about it all the time. I just don't think people they don't make the connection with Common Core and everything going on. So it's not a secret, you just have to kind of be so involved in the details that you make the connections, you know what I mean? The Science and Social Studies standards weren't implemented first, like math and ELA, which are called Common Core, because the Science and Social Studies standards are way more objectionable to conservatives and Christians. What you'll find in the Science and Social Studies standards is they treat global warming as a fact, they treat evolution as a fact, and they're not only treated as facts, they're not presented as theories, but they make the entire foundation of the standards, if that makes sense to you. So K through 12, they're being indoctrinated with this stuff over and over and over and over, so by the end they believe it's a fact. Let me see. So Science and Social Studies standards are based on a political ideology, and they lack intellectual integrity, 100%, no doubt about it. Well, I go from bad to worse standards as an independent rating system. Fordham has rated these standards a C. Michigan already has C-rated standards, and we have A-rated standards that are in Massachusetts, and we can get them for free, but we're not going to those. We're going to other mediocre standards, so it just doesn't make sense. The data that's being collected as a requirement of Common Core is unacceptable, invasive, and if you ask me, illegal. Independent parents were excluded from the development process about all these standards, Common Core and Science and Social Studies. It's all funded by special interests, which you probably already know. They have nothing to do with what's best for our children. The science standards are severely deficient in STEM fields. So you might hear in the news everybody talking about, oh, we got to push the kids in STEM, you know. Well, these are very deficient in STEM. So, you know, there's not a lot of physics, there's not a lot of chemistry, and in the Common Core, you know, the math is lacking in terms of STEM fields. And that's the way of dumbing down the entire population. The social studies standards teach the children that America is a democracy, not a constitutional republic. It teaches the children to work for the common good. It doesn't talk about individual responsibility, the American dream. You know, if you work hard, you can have it all. None of that stuff. And it also teaches in both science and social studies all about sustainability. And lastly, the social studies standards have been infused with politically framed civil liberty concerns, thanks to the input from Southern Poverty Law Center. Who knows who that group is? Yeah, very, very Marxist, very far left. Not anybody you want educating your children unless you're Marxist, very far left probably. Actual history has been completely left out. So please make those calls. I printed the list for you. You have the numbers. Don't be shy. Call all of them. They probably don't agree with you, but you know the last thing I want to have happen is for them to say, "Well, nobody said no. Nobody complained." So that's our goal right now: complain and say no.
Just let me know when you're ready for questions.
I'm ready.
Question for you. What's supposed to do with these? Supposed to pass these out to each individual?
Just fill those in with your name and contact information. They're petitions that we will give to the representatives.
Did you
And
want
I
us,
will-
our folks to get those filled out from other people around the city?
Or just for people here?
Well, it was for the people here, and I was going to take the email addresses off of them and then send you guys the electronic
Oh,
version
okay, that's
of
what
the
it says.
entire
So
packet.
if you want to receive the information, put your name and email on this form, it's going to be passed around.
Yeah.
Okay, she's going to open up questions. I'm going to ask one first. The word Common Core is, I think, aptly put. And I'm going to have Bill take this microphone because I've got a very good back. Do you believe that what they're trying to achieve is a core that's common to most of the countries in an educational status, that it doesn't take a lot of work if we adopt this, if Europe adopts this, that and I mentioned a little bit about it, once we get into a one government for the entire world, if we get a one education for the entire world, that the standard of Common Core isn't so hard in each country to then adopt these erroneous policies that you've been talking about. And it takes it from the parents and local governments and local counties and makes it administrated by the federal government. And I think they want to do that in all the countries once we have a united world government. Do you think that's part of the plan?
Here's a man that understands the big picture about what's going on. And I don't always talk about that because it seems kind of tinfoil hat to people that don't really understand the big picture of what's going on. But I not only think that, but I know it. I have proof, I have contracts.
Agenda 21.
Agenda 21. Bill Gates is what I call him the sugar daddy of Common Core. Anytime there's any organization involved, he has bought them out. He's paid for something. He's put billions of dollars into pushing Common Core and also now these science and social studies standards. He has contracts via Microsoft with UNESCO, the education wing of the UN. And he has turned over to UNESCO the rights to determine what education goes on in America. As many of you probably know, you can't reach one world order until you have taken down America, our love of God and country. Until you've taken it down, you're not going to get a one world order. So it's definitely part of it. One world education system, absolutely, 100%. And I'm happy to share proof or anything with anybody. I could talk about this stuff forever. So my email is tamaracpa@outlook.com. So that's TAMARA I'm a certified public accountant at outlook.com.
So remind people where your question and answer. Folks, think of some questions about this. Get educated on it.
Yeah, I'm an open book. Please fire away. I can probably answer any question you have.
How does the average school teacher feel about this, whether they be union or, because I guess the private schools are not teaching it Common Core, correct?
Well, some private schools have moved to Common Core because the state and national tests have moved to Common Core, so they don't want to leave their students behind and not have them be able to answer the questions on the Common Core test, which would be ones saying global warming is a fact and that type of thing. So not all private schools have made the switch, but some have, and for that reason.
How does the population of the school?
Oh yeah, the school teachers, the percentage of school teachers that don't like Common Core is on the rise. Right now it is estimated about 60% of school teachers do not like Common Core. It's growing as they're implementing it.
From what I understand, a school district is not forced to adopt the CC curriculum, but they do so voluntarily for fear that their students wouldn't otherwise be able to be prepared for the eventual test that will be given. And from what I understand, there are periodic evaluations that the students have to take to see how they're doing at certain levels?
That's
Is that-
right. You got it. 100%. There's a lot of assessments. That's why one of the main topics on these sheets is about excessive testing. I opted my child out at Northville High School, and after people saw her doing it, they were like, how come you never have to do this stuff? And then they started following her, and it ended up being 7% of the kids, juniors at Northville High School last year, opted out because my daughter led the way. And as a result, since they went over that 5% number, which affects funding from the government, they made those tests a requirement for graduation.
I have a friend that was teaching first grade reading in Wayne Westland, and she hated it because the kids had to learn words like acquisition, words that had to do with banks, not words that you have the basic words that you usually learn. And on talk radio, I was listening about it, and there's one lady that had her fourth grade student in Novi used to love math, now he hates math because of it.
Yeah, that's a very common thing that I hear, both the things you just said. And in an effort to make it seem like it's higher, they've made standards in inappropriate grades. Does that make sense? So, yeah, you're trying to make a one-year-old read, it's not going to happen, type of thing. And it completely stresses them out and gives them psychological damage. There's a lot of psychologists that are getting involved.
Tammy, a few months back, folks will remember, we used to have a world map here. And I would bring the world map out. I would blindfold the speaker. So if I still had it, somebody took it. If I still had it, we would blindfold you. I'd bring that map out. And unbeknownst to you, I would have that map turned upside down. And then we would take that blindfold off and ask you to find the United States, and you would be disoriented. You wouldn't be able to find it real fast. Now, the reason I did that is because 3 blocks away here, we have what used to be East Junior School, is now an international baccalaureate school. And so, being nosy as I am, I'm over there one Sunday afternoon after church, just sort of looking in the windows.
I love that. I love that.
Hoping no guard was going to come and chase me off. But as I look in the window, I see a map of the world. And it was very odd. It was upside down. But what was even more odd was the words were right side up. So this was printed upside down with the words of the world map readable right side up. And so if I'm a young person being educated, I'm looking at that world map to change borders, to not recognize it. You can't recognize borders. It's a world without borders. It's what the International Baccalaureate, and I think Common Core has a mission that's aligned with International Baccalaureate because it's international at base. It's international. It's the core that's common to the entire world to bring down the things that make this country great, the history of this country, the founding fathers, because they are not common to other countries. So we become a world without borders, then the one government, see, usually I call people out, I say, we're saying it wrong. It's not a new world order. It's a one government for the entire world. And it is a one education system for the entire world. Therefore, it has to be common at its core. And it's a one religion for the entire world. And it will not be Islam. It will not be Christianity. It will be a non-religious, secular government. And that's why we're having religions at war right now. We will clamor for a secular government to bring the world to peace. It is my contention. And the thing about Common Core, it goes directly to the core of that effort. I'm sorry for this. This sort of goes hot every now and then. But it helps establish that. And Christians and educators in this country better understand that Common Core is a fierce enemy that has to be dealt with.
You brought up an interesting thing, and that's IB, International Baccalaureate. That came before Common Core. Northville just implemented it. When Northville was implementing it, I took the base book of that program. It's called The Theory of Knowledge. I wrote a 22-page report on that book, and I'd be happy to share it if you want something to read, put you to sleep. But basically, I could summarize it It's very anti-Christian and pro-Islam, just like everything else that's coming out in the schools right now. And I understand the anti-Christian thing is part of the agenda because you got to take God and the love of America, all that stuff out that makes us America. The pro-Islam thing, I could talk for a long time about that, but I'll save that for another time.
Any other questions, folks? If there's no other questions,